Well said.
You also got Harvey in there, the big guy.
Simon's going to be in the slot right now. Let's see if he can get free. They're working off the left hash mark. 2nd down and 3. 22 seconds remaining. 2 timeouts. Blitz by Missouri. Shuffle pass inside. Sanders inside the 10. 5. Rocket going for it. Touchdown Carolina. Touchdown Rocket Sanders. From 15 yards out. The game time.
Whoa! Yeah!
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Boom.
no, hell no, we just scored.
Oh my gosh. Shuffle pass.
Woo!
Listen to this crowd.
What do you think of that, Monty?
If that's not one of the runs of the year in the SEC, I don't know what is. I mean, we all love the juking and jiving and the dead leg and pressing the Y button, spin around or whatever they call it. But I mean, it's just great just to watch a running back with a ball just plow ahead and bounce off of defenders. I don't know of anything better in football than the quarterback sack, to me personally.
And if our listeners didn't recognize that, that was South Carolina running for the winning touchdown against Missouri on Saturday. And welcome to the Full Monty and a Cup of Joe podcast. Joe Matthew and Monty Putnam here in South Carolina. That's 4 in a row, Monty. They're ranked now and they're looking pretty good.
At the beginning of the year, I don't think any Gamecock fan would have called this. Maybe a very few that are eternally optimistic may have called it. I think most of us thought that, hey, let's get to a bowl game and we'll be doing good. But I think we knew we kind of had something special going on actually after the Alabama loss. The loss at LSU, we didn't know a lot about LSU, but when we got to the point where we played at Alabama, we did know a lot about Alabama and we knew we were good. And being able to just hang with LSU and hang with Alabama for those 2 games, even though we lost, we knew we were moving in the right direction. Now, obviously the Ole Miss game gave us a little bit of doubt because we kind of got kicked around in that one. But if you'd have told me we'd have gone on this run that we've gone on after Alabama, beating Texas A&M, beating Oklahoma, I mean, it's just I would have never believed it. I would have thought right then, yeah, this looks like a 4-8 season coming up here for us. But I mean, it's been great. It's been a great year to be a Gamecock fan, and I'm looking forward to see how it wraps up. I'm hoping that we're talking about a 9-3 Gamecock team here in a few weeks.
And that'd be awesome, and that'd be something to build off for next year too. It's looking
huge.
good down there. So you got Wofford and then Clemson left.
Yeah,
That Clemson game looks a lot more intriguing than it did at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it does. And, that game is a game that's always winnable for either team, regardless of how bad or good they're both doing. That's our K-State KU, game there. That's our Alabama Auburn. That's our Florida State. That's our that's our number 1 hated rival. So it's gone funny before where you would obviously have somebody that was favored and you thought was having, the better year and they'd stumble and get beat. We went on a little string with this rivalry where the visiting team won. South Carolina shown here in recent times that they don't have any problem winning at Clemson. They're not afraid of Death Valley. So, I think this year will be good. And, I hate to get cocky like a cocky Gamecock does, but I think they'll beat Clemson pretty handily. I'm not very worried about Clemson at all. Me personally, if you can beat Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt, you can beat Clemson in Clemson because I think that Vanderbilt team would beat Clemson. So, and I know Texas A&M would beat Clemson. So I'm not particularly worried about Clemson. I think the Gamecocks are looking at 9-3 and a pretty good bowl game coming up here.
Yeah, and I think before the season you were optimistically saying 7-5, maybe 8-4 for their record. So I
Yeah,
can't quite remember. What did you say?
I was thinking 8-4, but I was counting LSU as a loss, and I was counting Ole Miss as a win. And I was definitely counting Oklahoma as a loss, just because I figured after Venable's first year, which was kind of bad, and then or kind of better than last. They got worse, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, but I figured after last year they were going in the right direction, and I figured that Oklahoma would be a really tough game this year. But the way Oklahoma's played this season, what I was expecting, I figured that was going to be a definite loss. I figured they could kind of hang with Texas A&M. I didn't think we had a shot at all of winning in Alabama, which we didn't win in Alabama, but we did have a shot. So it's been kind of a crazy year. And you're right, 8-4 was my the high end of my prediction. I would have been ecstatic with 8-4. I would have been happy with 7-5. But I think 9-3. I mean, that's just. I mean, I don't. You never would have picked that at the beginning of this year, coming off of last year with a horrible loss to Clemson to end the season, with a scoop and score to basically start the game. You hold Clemson out of the end zone the entire time on offense, and you still lose the game. Then don't go to a bowl game. So it's been a long time from last November to now, and South Carolina fans are ready. They're excited. And they really want to see them get these last 2 wins and make this a 9-win team and go to a real marquee bowl game. So we're excited for that. We're pumped up.
Yeah, and I think I had them at 6-6. So this is really surprising to me. And I've watched them, and they're legit. They're a legit 9-3 team. That's the thing. They're playing well. They're not getting lucky. The ball's not bouncing their way. They're legit playing well.
There's been a few people nationwide that have made the comment that South Carolina right now, of any team in all of college football, South Carolina is playing the best. And I say that, I'm not saying South Carolina is the best team in college football. So don't quote me as saying that. That's not what I'm saying. But all around, I think offense, defense, and special teams, I think South Carolina is playing some of the best football in the country.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as far as I've seen them.
So speaking of surprises, I mean, I look at this top 25, Joe. I know you don't want to, maybe talk about it. Maybe it's a sore subject, but I mean, I really wasn't planning at any point of this year of not seeing K-State at least in the top 15.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's had a disappointing game against Arizona State. And the thing about Arizona State is I like to look at the recruiting rankings, and Arizona State has had a couple of good recruiting classes. So when they were picked in the lower part of the Big 12 preseason, I thought, that's kind of weird. They've got some really good players. I mean, they've got a receiver that'll be playing in the NFL. They got a dual threat quarterback that's been playing really well. And so that it surprised me that they weren't picked to do better. And I mean, they've surprised everybody. They've come out and I mean, they're a contender to win the league. K-State, on the other hand, not playing well right now. Now, Arizona State, I noticed that their players are bigger than K-State's players and they're faster than K-State's players overall. And we sit pretty close to the field, and you can see that. You can see their offensive linemen are huge compared to our defensive line. And that's how the game played out. We got behind 24-0, tried to make a comeback. But as Chris Klieman even said, a reporter asked him, how were you able to come back a little bit and make a run there in the second half? And he said his first instinct, which was the truth, was, well, Arizona State got conservative, and that is true. If they would have kept the gas down, and so many coaches don't do that. Chris Klieman doesn't even do that. I mean, these coaches should keep the gas down when they're blowing a team out, I think. Too many times they play conservative and let the other team back in the game. But back to what happened in the game. Yeah, K-State wasn't even in it from the beginning. Arizona State dominated, and that's disappointing. The offense couldn't do anything. Avery Johnson, he tried to be a pocket passer again instead of using his legs, and which you even mentioned the first time you saw him, how fast he is, right? How good of an athlete he is. And why they're trying to make him a pocket passer, I'll never know.
I can't understand unless it's just to maybe keep him from getting hurt, or that's just what the offensive coordinator wants to do. But I mean, that's
the only thing I could guess.
That kid's blazing fast.
Yeah.
It looks to me sometimes watching him, when the pocket starts to collapse around him a little bit, he seems to get kind of flustered. And I don't think that he's patient enough right now. And I think that's okay at this point in his career. I think that he's gonna learn a lot this year, and I don't think you're gonna see the same type stuff from him next year. I think you'll see a totally different quarterback next year. I think this year's been a big learning step for him, and I think maybe some of it came at him a little too fast. And like you were just talking about Arizona State's players standing there, with the K-State guys, me and you have kind of touched on that before. K-State, this K-State team, it's definitely one of the fastest teams that I've ever seen, but it's also, they're not very big.
Right.
They don't have those big, giant, hulking guys out there. And, sooner or later, one of these things, has to give. And I don't know. Like I said, I had K-State as a strong pick to be one of the playoff teams. I figured that they would, even if they made it to the Big 12 championship and lost, I figured K-State still might, wind up getting in. But it looks like it's not to be. It's just
What's
not
disappointing is that we knew there would be growing pains this year. You have a new offensive coordinator. Avery Johnson is a new quarterback, kind of learning his way. But they had it in front of them. Now, granted, they were picked in the preseason to be one of the contenders. But they had it in front of them this year. Everyone says, well, next year, they're going to be really good. Well, you can't count on that.
Right.
The fact that they had it in front of them this year and they're kind of blowing it is very frustrating.
Yeah.
Klieman said an interesting thing in the press conference, and we're going to kind of get into what he may have on going on personally, but he said, yeah, I'm going to talk to Connor Riley, the offensive coordinator, and have him cut Avery Johnson loose, especially in the red zone. Well, this is what I've been saying all season, is they're not utilizing his talents. The quarterback run game isn't part of the offense. Now, he runs the ball when he scrambles, when he's back to pass and scrambling around, but the quarterback run game needs to be a part of the offense. And why it isn't is frustrating. And now, after they've lost 3 times and they're out of it, now he decides to go to the offensive coordinator and say, oh, yeah, cut Avery loose. What? Why didn't you say that at the beginning of the year? Maybe the season would have played out differently.
Yeah, if
hindsight's 2020, but it's an odd comment to make. Like, why haven't they cut him loose? Like you said, are they trying to make sure he doesn't get injured? Is it something else? A lot of fans think that Avery is injured, and that's why he's not running it. I don't see that at all. I don't see that he's injured.
If he's injured, I wouldn't even be able to begin to guess what the injury is. I mean, he doesn't have a noticeable limp or anything.
No, I mean, he ran for a 15-yard touchdown the other night, and he put on the Jets and looked perfectly fine.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that's the reason. But if you've got a quarterback that can run the ball and you're not using him, it's an entirely another facet of your game that you're just not taking advantage of.
Yeah.
So why would you not use it? South Carolina right now, we would be absolutely lost if Lenora Sellers was not the quarterback on this team. And Lenora Sellers certainly isn't as nearly as fast. But what Lenoris can do is Lenoris takes hits and hit after hit after hit and bounces off. So if you watch some of those plays, highlight plays of Lenoris, that's what makes him so valuable to South Carolina is not getting tackled. What makes Avery so valuable to K-State is speed. It seems like to me. And if you're not going to use that speed, then I'm with you there, Joe. I don't understand it. Why do you have a resource right there that you can use to your advantage, but you're not going to use it? Why would you not? You're right. It doesn't make any sense.
So after the game, Chris Klieman talked to the media, and he broke down at the podium a little bit, saying that he's had a couple of rough weeks personally. And he left it at that, and no one followed up with him and asked him, well, what's going on? So the rumor mill starts up, like, what's going on with Chris Klieman? We know he had a dizzy spells during the KU game. During the game, they took him to the locker room and evaluated him because he was getting dizzy. So we know that's happened. And then he went out of his way to mention in the press conference that he's had a tough couple of weeks. So, but he didn't give specifics. So then the rumor mill starts. There's a 2-day rumor mill that Chris Klieman has a health issue and is considering retirement. So opening up his Monday press conference, he was asked about this by Tim Fitzgerald, and I want to play this for you and get your reaction.
Coach, I want to clear this thing up first because we've been getting a rumor that you're going to retire. I just want to put that out there so you shoot it down.
I don't know where you got that from, Fitz. I haven't said that to anybody. Okay.
Okay.
So he answers the question. The question was, are you thinking about retiring? And he says, I don't know where you got that. I haven't said that to anybody.
Right.
He doesn't say, no, why would I consider retiring? Or, no, I'm committed to K-State. I'm in here for the long haul. He says a weird answer of, I haven't said that to anybody. Now, did you find that odd?
Yeah, I definitely, absolutely. I mean, that's a non-answer. I mean,
yeah,
it's like the old, like when they always say, well, so and so is our coach. Well, yeah, well, we know he's the coach. He's the coach right now, but are you going to fire him? So they don't. Those guys know they know how to talk to the media, and they know how to kind of, I guess, say things without saying it. I'm sure that's part of their craft. They have to be good at. But yeah, that is a pretty interesting response. Why wouldn't you just come out and flatly deny it instead of saying, no, I haven't told anyone that, or I don't know where you heard that from, I haven't said that to anyone? Why would you say that instead of just saying, no, that's absolutely false, I'm not retiring?
Right.
If that was the case. Now, I had my own thoughts. I had my own thoughts about this, and I discussed it a little bit with you. And I think some people thought that I was maybe joking or just being silly or outlandish, and maybe I am. But I'm wondering, just in the abstract here, is there not somebody else courting him and courting him pretty hard? And maybe that's interfering with him being able to do what's in front of him right now, because maybe there's a situation on the side with another university. Now, we know these things happen. We can say no, that's not what's happening. But we never know for sure. But we do know that does actually happen. And I'm not saying, I mean, I certainly have no knowledge. I have no credentials. I'm not a reporter, nothing. I'm just spitballing and guessing. But I can see several teams out there wanting to hire him. And I was just curious, maybe somebody's thrown that on him and it's in his mind, it's in his head, and it's blocking him from being able to get K-State, like where they need to be, where they're supposed to be, where they're used to be.
And there are no coincidences here. K-State has lost the last 2 games and have looked really bad doing it. At the same time, Chris Klieman mentions he has a lot of stuff going on personally the last 2 weeks, and that's not coincidence.
Right.
The team on the field is playing poorly because he's not focused on 100% focused on the team. And, I don't know what's going on. If he has cancer or something, I'm going to feel bad even questioning him, right?
Sure.
But don't we as fans deserve to know more than they're letting on? I mean, they want us to come to games. They're constantly asking for money for NIL and the Ahern Fund and trying to sell trips to Ireland and increasing parking prices, increasing ticket prices. And as a fan, I would like to know these things, instead of being left in the dark. They're constantly asking for money, and it costs more and more and more. And
I just don't understand.
It's getting frustrating.
I don't understand why come out and say that you've been dealing with something personally and then not at least, somewhat
answer why or what's going on.
Right. Like, or, at least say, I've been dealing with some family issues, or I've been dealing with some health issues. You certainly, there's a privacy thing that a person's health is their own business. So, you're not asking for details about the person's medical treatment, but I mean, at least come out and say, I've got something, that I've been dealing with. It's a health issue, family issue, whatever. I don't know. It's odd to me because I can look and tell, and obviously I'm looking, from a distance, but I can look and tell this is clearly a different game. And I got the feeling, even when I was at the Kansas game, that the K-State team that I was watching in person during that Kansas game, they weren't the same team that I'd seen on TV the previous weeks.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Like, the rest of us, I don't know what's going on, but I would like to know. And something has definitely affected that team and the coaching of that team. I don't, so maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen with them going forward. They could win against Cincinnati on Saturday, or they could lose, and nothing would surprise me. I don't think they're going to go to Ames and beat Iowa State. So, look at probably an 8-4 season, which, and it's not horrible with a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback and a bunch of new other pieces, But like I said, it's frustrating that it was all in front of them, and it's all falling apart now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely expected a much bigger year from them. I felt pretty confident at the beginning of the year that they would either be a playoff team or right there at it. And it's kind of a shame to see them, to look at that top 25 and not even see them in there.
Yeah. So switching over to the AP poll in the college football playoff, it's looking really Well, actually, it's looking more Big Ten heavy right now than SEC heavy, but it's looking Big Ten and SEC heavy. You got Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Indiana are your top five. And Notre Dame is number 6. Then Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee. So you got a cluster of SEC teams. Then Miami and Boise State. There's your top 12 ranked. I don't have those playoff ratings right in front of me, but got any thoughts there on the playoffs going forward? Getting down to the wire now.
Oh, I've got so many thoughts, and I can't get into all of them. I hate it. I still hate it. I don't want humans involved with this. I don't think there should be a human element. For whatever reason, in major college and in baseball, basketball, football, we have to have a committee that picks who's going. It shouldn't matter. I mean, if the Baltimore Ravens are number 1 in the AFC North and the Steelers are number 3, well, Baltimore clinches, they get home field advantage. Maybe Pittsburgh's sitting there dying trying to get a wild card. That's the way it works. Those are facts. But now here we've got this system where we've got a team with 2 losses, a team with 3 losses that's ranked over a team with no losses.
I know it.
So how are you going to tell me that you're not even, at the top of your own conference, but yet you're ranked above teams that are in your conference in the playoff system? How in the hell is all of that supposed to make sense?
The thing is, we've got all these unbalanced schedules in every one of these conferences.
Well, there's so much that has to happen. Also, I mean, we've got conference championships coming up here, so you've got 2 more games, and you're going to have conference championships. Well, people have brought up the point: are these conference championship losses going to hurt those teams? And we got a very vague answer from one of the guys that was on the committee. I meant to write down his name and the quote and all that so we could use it during the podcast, and I forgot. But he just gave a very gray, non-committal answer about the teams that lose in their conference championships, like that situation that we wound up with TCU when K-State beat TCU and won the Big 12 championship, but TCU, went to the playoff, At what point does losing that conference game help or hurt you in these rankings coming up here at the end of the season? It's just so ridiculous. So many things don't make sense to me. Is there an example potentially or a scenario potentially where in the SEC championship, let's say number 3 Texas somehow loses to, I don't know, number 10 Georgia in the conference championship game? Okay, well, does that put Georgia above Texas because now they're both 2-loss teams, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't like how it works, but the teams that are in here, fundamentally, I do like them. I think that it's sad that a team like Army isn't getting any recognition at all for being undefeated, and everybody says, well, it's because of their schedule. Well, have you seen Notre Dame? I mean, wow, Notre Dame runs up an undefeated season and they play 2 or 3 real games a year. So, we'll see.
Yeah, these going forward, these uneven schedules have to end some. I mean, these conferences should have divisions like the NFL does. You play all the teams in your division at least, well, twice in the NFL, but like the Big 12 should be 2 divisions so that you play all the teams in your division so that the schedules are somewhat the same. And that way you can distinguish who is the best team in that division, and that the division winners play in the championship game.
And that makes sense. And maybe somebody else knows. I don't know. So if you know, please tell me. Like, why did these conferences like the SEC, when the SEC got Texas and Oklahoma, okay, well, now we're going to stop with our divisions. The SEC always had well, didn't always, but here in the most recent times, the East and the West. East champion plays West champion in Atlanta for the SEC title. But now we've gotten rid of that, and there are no divisions in the SEC. It's just
I don't know why the SEC got rid of it.
and that's
the Big
what
12 did, because there was so much movement in and out that it just got crazy and it got hard to. I mean, they were scrambling just to get teams to fill a schedule. So,
well, I know that these conferences, the four big ones, I mean, I know they have analysts that pore over this data and try and come up with, every possible scenario they can. And I'm just curious, what was the decision-making process behind the SEC getting rid of its divisions heading into this new playoff format?
that's a good question. I might look into that and
I'm
answer that next week, maybe.
I'd be curious to know what went on there, because there's some reason they did it.
Yeah.
I feel like when I look at the playoff, I feel like every team in that playoff should be the teams that have the best records. I don't care who they played. They played who was in front of them. So, I mean, if you wind up as a 12-0 Army team and you get left out of the playoffs, the same way that Boise State did, the same way that, who was it? Central Florida or South Florida, whoever it was that claimed the national championship that year, I mean,
yeah,
it's an improvement.
UCF?
I think so. It's an improvement, and I'm happy with it versus what we had, but it's still not what it needs to be.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And I find it funny, Alabama's the first 2-loss team in there.
Yeah.
You got 4 2-loss teams in the SEC that are in there. So how is Texas A&M not in there along with Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama? They're all 8-2. I don't know how they do this. This just it doesn't make any sense to me. I like things.
Nothing has changed my mind from the beginning of the season that the final game is going to be Ohio State and Georgia. I mean, you mentioned, we talked off air, like you think Oregon might take it this year, but I don't. I think it'll be Ohio State and Georgia again, but
I don't know, man. With Georgia, with those interceptions that he's throwing, I mean, that Ohio State defense will eat him alive. I mean, I think anybody in this playoff scenario, I mean, they know that he's interception prone. I mean, he's been throwing more to the other team here the last 4 or 5 weeks. What's his name? Carson Beck.
mm-hmm.
He's been throwing to the other team here the last 3 or 4 weeks, almost more than he has his own players. That Georgia team is not the Georgia team from the last 3 or so years. I don't know what's going on in his head. I don't know if his girlfriend broke up with him or whatever, but he's not right with his passing. His interceptions weren't nearly this bad, and if they don't get that corrected quickly, they're going to get eaten alive in the playoffs. I just hope it's not Tennessee. I'll take Alabama over Tennessee. Just God, please don't let it be Tennessee. There's nothing in this world worse than Tennessee Twitter. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I haven't been impressed with Tennessee. I mean, they're always good enough to be in the top 15 or so, and then their fans, like you said, they think they're hot stuff, and then they get beat by the better teams.
Well, you got an upset this weekend? You got anything you're looking for up here?
Nothing that I really see.
I do.
You got that Army, right?
I got Army beating Notre Dame, baby. Give me Army beating Notre Dame. Army's going to do it. And that'll be the end of Notre Dame this year. Notre Dame's breaking out. I know you got some very close, near and dear Notre Dame fans in your life, but they're breaking out those green shamrock uniforms.
Oh, are they? Yeah.
And I don't know what their record is in them, but I think the last couple of times they've lost in them. I'm not sure, but that game at Yankee Stadium, that's going to be special, I think. And if Army can win that, that would obviously certainly be, I think, Army's biggest win in our lifetime. Now those Army teams back in the 50s and 40s, they used to, they won the national title and had Heisman Trophy winners and all that. But
Right.
I think in recent times that would certainly be Army's biggest win. But that's my upset for the weekend is Army over Notre Dame.
All right. Well, I think Indiana could beat Ohio State, but is it really an upset? I guess you would consider it an upset, but Indiana's a team with no losses, so I think that could happen. Although it's in Ohio State, so not likely. As far as the Big 12, KU might beat Colorado, and now that'd be an upset nationally. National pundits would probably consider that an upset, but I wouldn't because KU's been playing really well lately. So that'll be an interesting game. That'd be one to look at.
If you're sitting around lunchtime bored with nothing to do on Saturday, I'd keep an eye on that SMU at Virginia and Ole Miss at Florida.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
That Florida team is kind of looking like they're not ready to die and give up yet. They're showing a few signs of life down there. They got number 9 coming in. They're 5-5 right now. They're not even bowl eligible. So, which they'll probably beat Florida State at the end of the year anyway. But 7-5 looks a lot better than 6-6. And Ben Hill Griffith Stadium in Gainesville is a hard place to play. A lot of these SEC stadiums are hard places to play. All these fan bases are passionate and loud, and they make a lot of noise. But I mean, the Swamp is tough. Yeah. I'd look for that. That's an interesting game right there. And I don't think Virginia is all that great. Virginia's not had a very good year. SMU's 9-1, number 13 in the country. And I think that with them going into Virginia this late in the season, and they've had some injuries too, I think this sets up good for Virginia to try and get bowl eligible as well. That's going to be their motivation, just like it is Florida. So those two games almost kind of mirror each other. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the underdogs upset in both of those games. I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida beat Ole Miss, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Virginia beat SMU. And I think they'll both be good games.
Yeah. And don't sleep on Wofford.
Holy
South Carolina.
Hey, man,
Monty, what would you do if Wofford beat South Carolina?
Joe,
what would you break in your house?
I have sat in that stadium and watched them get beat by Appalachian State. I've watched them get beat by Citadel. If they got beat by Wofford, honestly, if I was there, I would just have to just walk out and not speak to anyone or say anything and just go home and lay down and not get out of the bed until Monday. I would absolutely just.
Why does the SEC play a schedule like this where they play these patsies late in the season?
Because they all think that they're going to be in the SEC championship game, and they know they've got their big rivalry game coming up before that.
So they want an off week, basically.
Yeah, basically.
It's kind of a way to schedule in a bye week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and basically that's what it is. I mean, you go out there, with your starters, I think it's more like the NFL preseason than it is a bye week, because you go out there in the first quarters with your starters and your studs, and you rack up 17 or 24 points, and you just kind of demoralize someone and take the fight out of them, and then you just start cycling through your other players, and everybody gets a go, and you keep your all-stars on the bench most of the game. But I think that's why they do it. I think it's blatantly why they do it. I think it's horrible.
Yeah, me too.
And there again, I hate to say like the NFL, but like the NFL, they don't even get a chance to make their schedules. They don't get to determine that. They're told by the league, this is your schedule.
Right. Yeah.
And so, bam, there you go. There's another example. Hey, this is your schedule. And guess what? That also happens in high school football. High schools don't get to choose their teams. They might get to choose a couple of off weekend, out of conference games. But I mean, ultimately, they don't get to choose their schedule. The pros don't get to choose their schedule. But here we are again. Colleges are different. So,
yeah. All right, Monty. You got anything else?
What about those Steelers, man? They were looking pretty
good in a snowstorm.
The Browns threw the snowman on them.
Is that why the Browns won?
No,
was the weather that much of a factor, or
the weather was bad?
Were we too high on the Steelers?
The weather was bad, but you're in the NFC North. You should be able to play in the snow. Those guys have all done that before. I think it just boils down to it's just the quarterback play. It's consistent quarterback play, and Pittsburgh just does not have a good, strong, quarterback that works with their system right now. They got a couple guys that are trying. I mean, Russ is trying. Justin Fields is trying, and they're doing, a marginal job. But for what Pittsburgh wants to do and how Pittsburgh wants to play, those aren't the quarterbacks that you need. I tell you who I look out in college right now, and I see as a potential amazing quarterback for the Steelers that would be an awesome pick is Lenoris Sellers from South Carolina. The way he's not afraid to put his head down and run and take a pop and give a pop, that's how Pittsburgh plays football. That is Steelers football. We run the ball, everybody is a blocker, and we're constantly in your face on defense from the word go. So that's what Steelers football is, and I don't think we got quarterbacks right now that can fit with that. It'd be just like, God forbid, let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's say that you lose Mahomes all of a sudden and you want to go and throw Ben Roethlisberger back there. I mean, that's not going to work. Ben Roethlisberger in prime, I'm not talking about him now, obviously.
Right,
Ben Roethlisberger in his prime would not have worked with what Kansas City is doing with their offense right now. So, I think they're trying to, fit a square peg into a round hole, or whatever the saying is. I think they're trying to make Russ and Justin Fields work with that offense, and it's just not a natural fit.
Yeah, and then we got the Chiefs that lost, and
I wasn't seeing that one either.
No,
I
kind of did see that one coming. The Bills always beat the Chiefs in the regular season and then lose in the playoffs to them.
Yeah, I thought, I was hoping from the beginning of the year this is going to be that undefeated wire-to-wire season. The Patriots almost did it, but I was thinking this year's Chiefs team, and the way that, even some of the national media guys were talking in the summer, some of the guys that follow the NFL closely. I mean, this Chiefs team was loaded coming back, and they're experienced. They know what they're doing. They are a machine. They know how to work together. They know who's going to do what. They've got their timing down, their routes down. They know how to make their adjustments and how others on their team are going to respond to that adjustment. And they can do it on the fly. That's what makes Kansas City so lethal. And I honestly thought at this point in Mahomes' career, I think that right now he is absolutely at his prime. And I thought this year, this is going to be the year, the 17-0 all the way to the Super Bowl, completely undefeated from wire to wire. So anyway,
I think that's some injuries for Steve Rice and Pacheco. Pacheco's going to be back this week. But here's what I think's going to happen. I think the Lions are going to roll through the NFC playoffs and not really have a close game. And the Chiefs are going to go through the AFC playoffs, winning games close by like 3 points or something like that. And the Lions are going to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And everyone, those 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, everyone's going to say, oh, the Lions, this is the Lions' year. They're blowing everybody out. They're going to win. And everyone's going to pick the Lions. But the Chiefs are going to win because they have Patrick Mahomes and the Lions do not.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is a big difference maker, plus just playoff experience in general. Playoff experience for your players is very important, and Kansas City clearly has the edge there, and that big game playoff experience for your coaching staff. Detroit's still learning how to win, and God knows this is a 180 degrees different Detroit team than what we're used to. But until you've been in that playoff situation a few times and until you learn how to advance, it's hard to just pop up and go to the Super Bowl and win it. Having said that, if that were to happen, yeah, I would absolutely be pulling for the Lions, and that's no hate to Kansas City. I wanted to see the Lions win a Super Bowl just for their fans. I mean, God, just for their fans, for the torment and the torture. I mean, as a Gamecock fan, we relate to people that have fans that go through this kick in the stomach week after week and year after year. And, I got a soft spot in my heart, even though they're in our division and they beat us last night. I got a soft spot in my heart for the Cleveland Browns. I'd love to see the Cleveland Browns win a Super Bowl. Now, not Cincinnati. I hate Cincinnati. They're disgusting. But I'd like to see Cleveland win one. I'd like to see Detroit win one. But I think you're probably right. If it came down to those two, certainly you'd have to give the edge to Kansas City, providing, that they're at least majority helpful, and they've got Mahomes. They would win that in that environment, I think.
All right, Monty. Well, that's all I got. So have a good Thanksgiving, everybody. And
everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Joe, talk to you soon. We'll have to get together here and do another one of these coming up and get back on a schedule with them. And everybody, before I leave and the recording ends, please remember, go Army, beat Notre Dame, beat Navy.
Does the Army have a motto or a saying like
beat Navy?
Is that it?
I've never followed the university that much. Now, like when they're doing good like this in the Army Navy game, I'll follow them. But I mean, I don't even remember what the Army motto is, and I was in the Army, but I know if you say, as long as if you're around Army, the university, as long as you just keep saying beat Navy, you'll be fine. So
right.
Beat Notre Dame, beat Navy.
And that'll be a great game this year. I'm looking forward to that even more than normal.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And I'm so glad those guys are getting that publicity. I'm so glad those service academies are getting that publicity. And I'm curious, obviously we can't get into it now. It's the end of the podcast, but I'm curious how NIL would work with players at the service academies since they're under contract to the government. That's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how that works. Good question.
They may not be able to do NIL at all, which I guess if you want to get that extreme with it, BYU shouldn't be able to either, or Utah. So, hey.
Yeah. All right, brother. Have a good Thanksgiving. If I don't talk to you before then, and
happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Love you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Welcome and see you later. Bye.
Bye.